ABC General Hospital Spoilers reveal that what if the real disaster in Port Charles is not the bullet that already tore through flesh, but the moment a wounded man opens his eyes and realizes exactly who wanted him gone? That is where this story begins, not with justice, but with recognition, not with grief, but with rage. Cullum survives long enough to become more dangerous than anyone expected, and the most terrifying part is that survival does not make him cautious. It makes him vindictive. The memory that keeps clawing its way back through the fog of pain is not just the sensation of being shot or the humiliation of collapsing helplessly while others decided whether he would live or die. It is the image of Josslyn, the expression on her face, the unmistakable force of intention behind what he believes he saw. In his mind, this is no longer confusion, no longer suspicion, and certainly no longer a misunderstanding that could be settled quietly. It becomes a private verdict. He decides that Josslyn did not merely stand near his destruction. She chose it. That belief reshapes everything. A man who was once trying to understand the shifting power around him now wants revenge with the cold patience of someone who has tasted weakness and sworn never to feel it again. Cullum's fury is not loud at first. That is what makes it so poisonous. He understands that raw anger gets men killed, but information gets them control. So instead of lashing out blindly, he begins collecting leverage. He studies everyone connected to the night he was shot, everyone who panicked too quickly, everyone who said too little, everyone whose loyalty looked too rehearsed. And in that process, he discovers something even more valuable than evidence against Josslyn. He discovers Nathan's secret. Nathan is not simply a drifter between alliances, nor merely another man with shadows around him. He is WSB, and that truth changes the balance of power instantly. Suddenly, Cullum is no longer just a victim clawing for payback. He becomes a strategist sitting on a loaded weapon. He does not expose Nathan publicly, because exposure would burn the asset. Instead, he tightens his grip and uses the secret the way a desperate and wounded man uses a knife in the dark, close, personal, and with absolute intent to wound. Nathan is cornered before he even fully understands how badly. If his identity is revealed, his value disappears, his mission implodes, and whatever fragile line remains between his cover and his soul is gone. Cullum knows it, and that knowledge gives him a new kind of authority, one born not from rank, but from blackmail. From that point forward, the story stops being about one act of violence and starts becoming an anatomy of betrayal. Cullum wants Josslyn to suffer, but he is too calculating to rush toward a simple kill. He wants fear first. He wants isolation. He wants her to feel hunted by forces she cannot predict, and by faces she thought she understood. And because Britt remains emotionally entangled in the same dangerous web, because she has information, instincts, and history that make her impossible to ignore, Cullum expands his revenge into something uglier. He orders Nathan to do what Nathan never wanted to do: track Britt and Josslyn, pressure them, break them, and if necessary, eliminate them before they can destroy him. It is an insane command, but that is precisely why it lands with such force. Nathan, who once operated with the cold discipline of a trained agent, is suddenly forced into a mission that violates every internal boundary he still has left. He is not being asked to neutralize faceless threats. He is being ordered to hunt women whose danger lies not only in what they know, but in what they mean to people he cannot afford to make enemies of. The mission is dirty, impulsive, personal, and impossible to control. That is exactly why Cullum chooses it. He wants chaos because chaos hides motive. He wants blood because blood erases testimony. Josslyn feels the shift before she can prove it. Port Charles has taught her many things, but one of the most brutal lessons is that danger rarely announces itself honestly. It enters through changed routines, missed calls, faces that look away too fast, and the heavy sensation that every safe place has already been mapped by somebody else. She begins to realize that Cullum is not just alive, but actively moving pieces around the board, and the fear that hits her is not the fear of being caught in some random retaliation. It is the fear that her choices, however justified they may have felt in the moment, have set off a chain reaction that now reaches far beyond her. Josslyn has always carried a fierce instinct to act, to protect, to strike before being destroyed. But that same instinct now becomes the source of her torment. She cannot fully retreat into innocence because part of her knows she crossed lines emotionally, strategically, perhaps even morally. Whether she truly meant to kill Cullum becomes almost irrelevant once he believes she did. In Port Charles, perception becomes motive, and motive becomes a death sentence. What tears Josslyn apart is not only the threat outside her door, but the possibility that the war now coming for her might be the warped consequence of choices she can no longer explain away. Britt, meanwhile, is dragged into the center of the nightmare with the bitter clarity of someone who has survived enough to recognize the shape of disaster before others do. She understands men like Cullum. She understands what happens when damaged pride merges with tactical intelligence. To Britt, the danger is not that Cullum is emotional, it is that he has learned to weaponize emotion without losing operational focus. She senses almost immediately that Nathan is involved somehow, but the realization does not comfort her. It horrifies her. Nathan's presence means structure, reach, and access. It means this hunt will not be sloppy. It means they are not running from a wounded criminal acting on impulse. They are running from a machine being fueled by personal vengeance and guided by trained hands. Britt's inner conflict cuts even deeper because she knows that survival may demand hard choices she is tired of making. Protecting Josslyn could expose Jason. Trusting Jason could destroy any remaining chance of clearing his name. Running could make them look guilty. Staying could get them killed. For Britt, every option feels contaminated. She is not just trying to outthink an enemy, she is trying to choose which loss she can live with. Nathan suffers the most corrosive conflict of all because he is the hinge upon which the entire nightmare swings. Cullum thinks he owns him, but coercion is never the same as obedience. Nathan is forced into a sickening double existence. On the surface, he must appear to comply, feeding Cullum movement, progress, and the illusion that the hunt is underway. Beneath that surface, he is disintegrating. His WSB training tells him to preserve mission integrity, protect useful assets, and remain detached. But detachment collapses once the targets become Britt and Josslyn, once every report he files carries the potential to become a death warrant. He begins delaying, editing, shaping intelligence, buying minutes where he can, but each hesitation increases Cullum's suspicion. Nathan realizes that blackmail is only the first layer of the trap. The deeper trap is moral. The longer he obeys, the more complicit he becomes. The harder he resists, the closer he gets to exposure. He starts to understand that there may be no version of this story in which he walks away clean. That knowledge breeds desperation, and desperation makes even trained operatives unstable. One mistake from Nathan could get Britt killed. Another could put Josslyn directly in Cullum's line of fire. A third could expose the WSB network and ignite a larger war. His silence becomes its own betrayal, and he knows it. Jason's position turns the situation from dangerous to catastrophic. Normally, he would be the one man capable of stabilizing the chaos, identifying the true threat, and cutting through the lies before the body count rises. But Jason is trapped inside the machinery of accusation and delay, denied vindication at the exact moment his absence becomes the greatest advantage Cullum has. With Jason unable to clear his name, unable to move freely, and unable to intervene decisively, everyone around him becomes more vulnerable. Worse, the uncertainty surrounding Jason poisons trust everywhere else. Some begin to wonder whether his silence hides guilt. Others fear that helping him will place them under the same shadow. Port Charles starts to fracture along invisible fault lines, and that fragmentation is what allows Cullum's revenge plot to grow teeth. Jason's frustration becomes volcanic because he can feel the disaster unfolding while being forced to watch from behind walls built by legal manipulation and strategic delay. He knows that each hour spent failing to restore his name is another hour Josslyn and Britt remain exposed, another hour Nathan sinks deeper, another hour Cullum gains confidence. The rage inside Jason is therefore not theatrical. It is the helpless fury of a man whose usefulness has been stripped away at the one moment he is most needed. As the pressure mounts, Cullum escalates. He starts feeding selective truths into the city, not enough to expose his hand, but enough to distort everyone else's. Rumors spread that Josslyn is unstable, that Britt has re-entered old patterns of deception, that Jason's unresolved case is connected to fresh disappearances. None of it is fully provable, which is exactly why it works. Suspicion does what bullets sometimes cannot. It isolates. Allies become hesitant. Friends become cautious. The hunted begin to look guilty simply because they are afraid. Cullum thrives on that erosion of certainty. To him, revenge is not complete unless it corrupts the victims' relationships along with their safety. He wants Josslyn looking over her shoulder and wondering who has already been turned against her. He wants Britt forced into the exhausting role of protector while doubting every move. He wants Jason blamed for deaths he did not cause, because false guilt is in many ways more destructive than prison. And then the story takes its darkest turn. Nathan, stretched beyond endurance, makes a decision meant to prevent bloodshed, but in Port Charles even attempts at mercy can trigger catastrophe. He arranges what he believes will be a controlled near intercept, a chance to warn Britt and Josslyn without exposing himself fully to Cullum, but Cullum has already anticipated betrayal. He plants another layer beneath Nathan's operation, another set of watchers, another contingency designed to punish hesitation. What follows is not a clean ambush, but a cascading collapse of plans. Britt and Josslyn realize too late that they are not simply being followed. They are being shepherded toward a kill zone designed to flush out loyalties. Nathan is forced to reveal more of himself than he intended. Josslyn, already under immense psychological pressure, reacts with the volatile instinct of someone who has been cornered too many times. Britt tries to pull order out of panic, but panic has already infected everyone involved. In the confusion, someone falls. Then another. Whether those deaths are intentional, accidental, or the result of miscalculation almost ceases to matter because the emotional result is the same. Port Charles crosses a threshold. The body count rises, and with it the certainty that this is no longer a solvable scandal. It is a catastrophe. What makes the tragedy so gripping is that each character helps create it in ways both understandable and unforgivable. Cullum chooses revenge because being weak once is intolerable to him. Josslyn's earlier aggression, whatever its justification, gives him the emotional target he needs. Britt's loyalty keeps her in the line of fire long after escape might have been possible. Nathan's silence, born from coercion and divided duty, becomes part of the machinery hunting the very people he should have protected. Jason's inability to clear his name leaves a vacuum others fill with violence. Nobody acts from a single simple motive. That is why the spiral feels so brutal. This is not evil descending neatly from one villain onto innocent victims. It is a chain reaction of fear, pride, secrecy, love, guilt, and retaliation, each emotion pushing the next decision into a darker place. By the end, the most chilling possibility is not merely that Jason remains unvindicated or that Britt and Josslyn survive the chase scarred beyond recognition. It is that Cullum's revenge succeeds even if he loses control of the board. Once enough people die, once enough secrets are weaponized, innocence becomes irrelevant. Nathan may try to break from Cullum and expose everything, but exposure this late could destroy what remains of the WSB network around him and still fail to save the people already marked. Josslyn may survive physically only to realize that surviving does not erase the role she played in provoking the storm. Britt may manage to outlast the trap only to carry the crushing knowledge that she was hunted by someone who, in another life, might have been considered an ally by blood, by trust, or by shared cause. Jason may finally get close to the truth only to find that truth has arrived too late to prevent the funerals. That is the real horror of this storyline. It is not simply about who shot whom, who ordered whom, or who betrayed whom. It is about how quickly revenge mutates into structure, how personal rage can hijack institutions, how a buried identity like Nathan's can become leverage for a madman, and how the cost of one unfinished act of violence can spread outward until every relationship is infected. Port Charles is full of survivors, but survival has never guaranteed peace there. Sometimes survival is only the first curse. Sometimes opening your eyes after nearly dying simply means you get to choose how many others fall with you. And if Cullum truly believes Josslyn tried to kill him, if he truly holds Nathan's secret tightly enough to turn a WSB operative into an unwilling weapon, then the city is not heading toward a revelation. It is heading toward a reckoning. The kind that leaves names cleared too late, loyalty shattered beyond repair, and the living wishing they had not made it through the night at all.